Thank you for watching Conscious Consumer Network. The live stream broadcast is free to view. You can pause and rewind live broadcasts to catch up, or view shows at a later date by accessing our free archives of all shows. Check out our broadcast guide to see what's on. You can show your support by donating to our network support fund. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or subscribe to the monthly newsletter for updates. We thank you for supporting free and independent media.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everybody, wherever you may be on this beautiful planet. My name is Mel V, and I'm coming to you live from Conscious Consumer Network headquarters here in Portugal. It is great to be with you again. And as usual, we have our Stop South African Genocide program slot airing right now. And because of that, we are joined once again by our fabulous co-host, Karen Smith, who is chatting with me today to Shar Granger. So hello, Karen, and a big welcome to Shar.
Welcome, Shar.
Thank you for inviting me to join your show today.
It's an absolute pleasure and an honor to have you here, Shar, because despite my best efforts at following the state capture Gupta Gate story, I am well above my pay grade trying to talk about it. I'm lost in the gazillion details and sidelines and little dirt tracks that lead off. You think you're following a road, and the next thing you know, there's 20 little roads ahead of you, and I am lost. I have the big picture, but the actual timeline and the whole story is way beyond me. I just cannot get my head around it. So you were there from the very beginning. You started on Facebook drawing attention to this. You were at the protests against Bell Pottinger in the UK. And I thought it would be a very good idea to have you to try and explain to us what really is going on, because most of us just don't understand it.
Right, I'm with you. But thanks once again for inviting me on your program. It's an honor for me to be here. This is a complete higgledy-piggledy of a concept. It's a mishmash of everything. And like you say, Karen, it's very difficult to grasp or focus on one item at a time because there's just so much going on. So what I have done today is I've taken the most salient features for the viewer to understand, and hopefully later on they will be able to work from this, because obviously the more support that there is pushing this situation, the better for all South Africans, because I'm sitting here in Britain trying to fight the battle there, which is quite difficult. So I'm fully conscious of all that goes on in South Africa, and it concerns myself greatly, especially as I have a vested interest. I have family and I have friends there, just like I'm sure you have. And it's difficult to listen to people without seeing the full picture for yourself. So we sit here and we try and put all the pieces back together again. And then we start asking questions, and we're not getting those answers. We can look at media, we can look at Twitter, we can try and follow this on the internet, but there is a news embargo. So what is happening in South Africa doesn't get to us here in Britain, and I'm sure it doesn't get to people in America. So we have a problem. And unless we ask the right questions, we're not going to get those answers. So
and even then, Shar, you're unlikely to get the answer.
Well, people in South Africa, I find, are not wanting to talk. They're keeping very shh about the situation, which is not quite correct. They should be talking, because we want to get those people, that side, talking, because the more people that are talking, then we can do something about this together. And that is the concept of this project of mine, is togetherness. Because there's strength in unity, and that's what I'm trying to correlate here. So I'm going to be informing the viewers about the situation involving the Guptas, the silent coup that has led to the state capture, and then Bell Pottinger. And I will explain everything very simply so that everybody can understand.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it's a pleasure. And if there's something that is not quite understood, please just shout, scream, perform, do whatever, and I'm happy to help. So it is a problem because South Africa is in a very, very difficult situation. They are right at the end of the cliff. And it's not that they are at peace with themselves. They cannot be. In fact, it is a dangerous place right now, especially under this dictatorship of its current president, Jacob Zuma, of the African National Congress, and the influence of the Gupta brothers and their undercurrent activities. In short, South Africa has been stolen. Much attention has been paid recently in public debates and reports of corruption in South African government state-owned enterprises and to the phenomenon of state capture. Most people don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
Most people have Googled it, but I don't think they fully grasp just how involved state capture really has gone in South Africa. And this is nothing new. This has been around since 2006. But I'll cover that in a minute. State capture is far greater. It's a systematic threat that is best described as a silent coup operating beneath the disguise of radical economic transformation. Now, I'm sure you've heard those three words. Now, this is where people get confused because this is what they want to do. This is their method of operandi, is to confuse us, the public. But when these three words were mentioned right back in March of this year, by, I think it was the new Minister of Finance.
Yes.
He mentioned that there's going to be this unique system called radical economic transformation. Well, that is your state capture in full bloom. Now, this has been implemented by some very clever people. These are not your everyday business people. These are very clever people, and there are plenty of them, not just one or two. Now, unfortunately, it is the very citizens that have voted and trust the African National Congress who are deeply involved in this radical economic transformation. They cannot deny it because, after all, they first mentioned it. So we've got them there. Now, we only need to look at March 2017 and go back to the midnight cabinet reshuffle. All right. Yeah. When we do that and we look at the confirmation of the silent coup, this was the first cabinet reshuffle that took place without the full prior support of the government. And I have to ask myself, why was that? Why did Zuma institute this cabinet reshuffle without the support of his government? Surely when they found out, they must have been upset. They must have been going berserk, but they weren't.
Yeah.
I think from here it goes to show that a lot of the government have so much support for Zuma that whatever he says, they ultimately just believe it. And they don't ask enough questions.
Can that really be the case, though? Because they I know I'm jumping ahead, and I don't intend to, but they did do a no confidence vote against Zuma. So surely I find it almost inhumane that these people are blindly following and believing every word dripping from his lips. and there's not very many sensible words coming out his mouth either. But I find it very difficult to believe that they just blindly follow him like sheep. Is it the threat?
It's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. And it seems to be that he has got such a command. That's why I refer to him as being a dictator, because he has to have his say and other people follow him. They're not allowed to speak. They're not allowed to have an opinion, which is a darn shame, because if they had an opinion or were allowed to have an opinion, maybe things would be different today, but they're not. And people like you and myself and the viewers watching, I'm sure that they will agree and ask the same question. Why do they listen to every word that Zuma says? And what if he says that that wall behind me is black, they will believe him.
But it's probably a racist wall anyway, because it's not black.
I'm proud of it.
I mean, honestly, that's all they need to do is say it's racist, and suddenly it becomes black. For me, it is such an unbelievable situation that this man with no education can't even read a number off of a piece of paper, is followed slavishly as if he were the Messiah.
Ah, you see, I'm not going to say you're wrong. However, Jacob Zuma is a very intelligent man. He likes to win his audience over by just acting stupid. He thinks that by being ignorant is going to buy him another free meal ticket. But he worked in the intelligence department of Umkhonto we Sizwe, the military wing of the ANC. Yeah. So he has got
he's
got his finger on the pulse, but he likes to give the image that he is not so clever and cannot count. I've listened to his 11-teen and his 17s, and quite laughable, but I think he likes to fool people, because that's just what is it? That's just his persona that he likes to portray. It's not the real person. He's a very clever man, and we should never underestimate him or those within his close circle. But anyway, we will cover this, and a lot more is going to come to light with what I'm going to say here. But there is complete and absolute chaos, and there is severe incompetence, and this has become all part and parcel of the system of government at the moment. And therefore, it's in my view that it's not just corruption. It's not just corruption on its own that needs to be confronted here, but the fact that a corrupt system has been facilitated by the removal of adequately experienced professionals. Although some of these parliamentarians or cabinet ministers say that they've got degrees and are highly qualified, somehow I have my doubts. But anyhow, this is the situation, that there are individuals that somehow manage to get these powerful roles by saying that they have all these qualifications, but they don't actually have them, because we can see that in the way that they behave and conduct themselves. It's a very, very difficult situation indeed, and sometimes it's hard to fully grasp exactly what it is and where it is that they are leading their followers. And this is what actually perturbs me. And that's probably another reason why I'm talking to you today, because I've been following this for more than 9 years.
I know.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's because people are scared of me, because I'm a bit of a feisty lady, but I speak my mind. And I am often told that I have too much of an opinion. Well, I'm going to say that's just too bad, how sad, because I'm marching forward. Anyhow.
I love it. I love it. That adequately describes Mel and myself. Yeah. Too bad.
Yeah,
Too
yeah.
bad. That's not going to stop us.
No, nothing's going to stop me, because if we can work as a team, then we've got these strong people involved, and yes, nothing's going to stop us, because it's just forward to the final victory. But I think ultimately there's a lot of South Africans that are in a situation where they do not know what to do.
Yeah.
They are feeling very vulnerable right now. And unfortunately, they are being exploited. They are suppressed and downtrodden. And I'm talking about all South Africans.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about one particular group. I'm talking about everybody. It doesn't matter whether they've got a doctorate or a master of science, or they make tea for the children at school. Everybody. And it's a very sad situation that none of this news is coming outside. It's not arriving here in Britain. We don't see it in our newspapers. It's not on Sky News. It's not on BBC or ITV. I don't know about Fox News. I don't listen to them. I don't pay them any attention. But the only time you can receive this news is if you Google, or perhaps on Twitter. A very sorry state of affairs. And we've only got one person to blame for that, unfortunately. Now, I refer to South Africa at the moment, because of the present circumstances, as being a mafia state. It's very firmly entrenched, and it's part of the argument for competition and control and power. The ultimate battle, I believe, can only be won on the streets through conscious organization and waves of protests that are designed to make it difficult for Zuma's government to function, as has been seen. We saw that in March with the huge peaceful protest in Cape Town and also in Pretoria. I mean, that was magnificent to see. There should be more of those. People must get together in large numbers, because that's the only way to stand your ground.
Yes.
It's all very well, one voice here and one voice there, but you need to have the numbers. And that is why, for me, to see that protest in Cape Town in March, that was absolutely fantastic. So well done to everybody that participated. I watched it here and it was mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we had the protest outside the South African High Commission in Trafalgar Square, and I was there, and I was a little bit perturbed as to, are the numbers actually going to arrive? Well, I didn't go around counting. And it was my hubby, my other half, he said to me, there must be at least 1,000 people here. But there were many people, all anxious to become involved, and the atmosphere was electric. And that is what we need to see more of. We need to see more of that, because the momentum will pick up. And as long as these protests are happening in London, then we are making inroads. And I say, let's do more of those. I can't remember the name of the man that organized the whole situation, but really, get on your bike. Let's do some more.
Yeah.
Give me a call. He knows where to find me. Sounds like I'm a troublemaker, doesn't it?
We all are in our own small way, Shah. We are not willing to keep quiet or to keep our head below the parapets. We stand up there in the firing line and say our piece, because somebody has to do it.
Somebody's got to listen. Somebody's got to go forward.
Yes.
As I say, the ultimate battle is where everybody does protest and they come out in large numbers. But here's something. Have a think about this for a minute. This is a surprise, because here you have all these crimes and this corruption being committed. What are law enforcement, the South African police, and the National Prosecuting Authority actually doing about these crimes? Do you hear them saying anything? Are there people being arrested? Are there people being charged? We don't hear a dicky boot, nothing. And they seem to be standing aside and they're just letting this go through, and it's wrong. And we should all stand back, stand our ground, dig our heels in and say, why? We want to know why, because these are enormous crimes
Yes.
committed. These are enormous corruptions, and it's not acceptable, not in any civilized society anywhere in the world. Now, almost every single government department of the ANC has been state captured.
Mm.
The police, the National Prosecuting Authority,
The Defence Force. Sure, the Defence Force.
look at the Defence Force. What a good example. I'm glad you brought that up.
They let that plane land at Waterkloof. They allowed that wedding to be paid for by the taxpayer. There was an outcry at the time, which suddenly all went away.
It's all been squashed.
Yeah. It's
amazing, isn't it, how that happens?
Yeah, a huge public outcry and then silence. Silence, never spoken about again.
It just shows you what the people are actually up against. And I don't blame anybody for walking away and just wanting nothing more to do with it. However, that's not how we're going to win this battle. In a nutshell, state capture means holding the state to ransom to the private desires of a particular group for their own selfish gain. We've seen this. We've seen this. In fact, this is rampant throughout most countries in Africa. And I've only lived in two countries, Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, and South Africa. And I'm seeing this happen more and more, particularly in South Africa, which is quite frightening. And I don't live there, so I suppose I get to see a lot more of it. But the selfish gains are definitely there. My husband says, yes, it reminds me of some baboons that run through a mealie field, and they've got a mealie under one arm and a mealie under the other, and another one between their legs, but they're still grabbing mealies, and where do they put the mealies?
Oh, be very careful. Be very careful. That's what Penny Sparrow got taken to court for just that.
Exactly. I'll watch it. Anyway, state capture can actually be described as two different forms. It's quite complicated, but I will explain it very simply, and I made some notes here. First, there is what can be called a systematic state capture. This refers to institutions that affect the internal and external sovereignty of the state and limit its policy options to those that favor powerful sectors which stand to benefit. A distinguishing feature of systematic capture, it'll start making sense now, is that it is often faceless. Now, by this description, I think, is the best way to describe it, is you have the Gupta brothers at the back. In the front are all their foot soldiers. They do all the work. And the Guptas are just standing there, giving the instructions. And it's quite easy, I think, to be able to give those instructions for them, because everybody seems to think, well, he's the man in charge, he's the boss, he's paying our wages. And what is that expression about he who pays the piper calls the tune?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So they are calling the tune, and we see it happening more and more and more every single day. And as I said to you earlier, is that together they have created all this confusion because they want us to be confused. They want us to run around like little ants on a hot tin roof. They don't want, for example, Gupta leaks. That was absolutely fabulous. That was fabulous. And the timing couldn't have been better.
Yeah.
Whoever is behind Gupta leaks, well, they deserve a medal. That was 3 out of 10. And if it was not for Gupta leaks, I don't think you and I would be having this discussion. We wouldn't have had the protest marches, and they would still be helping themselves to all the taxpayers' money. But anyhow, I'll probably get into trouble for saying that from somebody. But anyhow, a distinguished feature of systematic capture is that it can often be faceless, as I've just described. There may be particular families who are said to be chief architects or beneficiaries of these institutions. And we can think as to who the head honchos are of these institutions. It could be banks, it could be the Reserve Bank, it could be the Treasury, it could be the South African Revenue Service, it could be South African Airways, it could be Transnet, could be anybody.
Eskom.
Eskom.
Yep. And at the end of the day, it's every damn single one of them. Every one of them
is a different story.
Yeah.
I heard today, unfortunately I've been a bit involved, so I haven't been able to pay it as much attention as it usually deserves from me. But Eskom have now decided there's a bit too much heat on them, so they'll come out and they'll feed us a little bit of truth. So now they've just admitted to something, and I'm saying to myself, so now you're just starting to wake up. Why didn't you shame the devil and tell the truth long time ago? They would have been over that hurdle, but no, they haven't got the guts to tell the truth. And that is it.
Sure, if they had told the truth before now, then that 11 million rand bonus would not have been paid out to the fired leader of Eskom. So, we have a time frame here. If we tell the truth after that's done, then people can't demand it back. So it is all, even the truth is crooked.
Well, it is now, because we don't know when they do speak if it is the truth. We don't know. Whatever they try to tell us, we're taking it as a lie, because unfortunately there's only so many times you can cry. Or what is that expression about?
Cry wolf.
Cry wolf. Thank you. Yes. There's only so many times you can get away with that. But this is not one of those days. And I think they have made it very bad for themselves. I've noticed a lot more as well. There seems to be more and more lies that are coming out, and they seem to think this is normal. Now, I'm 60 years of age. If I told a lie, my mother, she would give me hellfire. I would be out with a little fish fork weeding the front lawn. Do you know how big our front lawn was? It would take me a week to pull out all those weeds. But that was my punishment for telling lies. Now today, I always say, just tell the truth. No one's going to believe you anyway.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Telling the truth used to be considered bravery and courageous. Now it's just nobody believes you anyway. So what? It's just unreal. This whole thing is unbelievable.
Shocking. And then we have another little man that I call him. He makes an awful lot of noise. I'm not able to pronounce his last name. But we have another system of state capture, and that's of the predatory type. A system in which one or few individuals hold specific political roles. And we've seen this by a former economic freedom fighter by the name of Andile. He's the leader of an extremely hostile group named Black First Land First, also known as BLF. Now, this is a Pan-Africanist and revolutionary socialist political party in South Africa. They were founded in 2015 by Andela from the EFF, and he became extremely, oh dear, what's happened?
We can hear you. We lost you for a moment. You're back.
Yeah, we're back again. He became extremely disgruntled. I suppose he didn't like being told what to do because he felt that he was of strong character, that he could do everything himself. So he went off and started BLF. Now, he today implies that the Guptas should be let off the hook because they have limited power to influence choices made by the state. He also creates the impression that the Guptas are emerging businessmen.
Yeah.
Who are being victimized for attempting to enter industries dominated by white monopoly capital.
There we go. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What is clear is that Andili would take the side of the Guptas because it has been alleged that the Guptas are his paymaster.
Yes.
So he's going to kowtow to them and do exactly what they tell him to do. Now, he is extremely active on Twitter. And it's quite interesting to see him in motion because he does not like criticism.
Mm.
And
he has a very, very thin skin.
Yeah, and he's I think his barometer is highly unstable. The one that goes up.
Yeah, that is that is putting it mildly.
But he is a very dangerous character. I wouldn't advise anybody to get into an argument with him. But he is interesting to observe. Now, after that being said, the interference by the Guptas in the affairs of government seemingly assumes that the predatory capture character, this is why it cannot always be grouped together with the systematic influence of white monopoly capital. And this will become more dominant as we progress in today's discussion, because it's in various nook and crannies. It's everywhere. But I think a white monopoly capital, a lot of individuals are only seeing the surface because they have different perceptions. They need to dig very deep to find out the meaning of those three words, because if you look at the surface, you've got it all wrong. Mm. And unfortunately, this was a campaign that was launched by Bell Pottinger, and it has just run forward from there for the wrong reasons, because people have interpreted those words. They have wrong perceptions of the word, and it is not all that it's supposed to be today. It's quite a difficult situation, actually. But there are those who believe there has been systematic capture of the state by neoliberal politics and market forces. And we've seen that very active. We've seen that the depth of the involvement in this neoliberal politics, which, as far as I'm concerned, that is just a buffer that is used to hide and divert our attentions. We see that happen often, and I always say to myself, stand back, this is just a diversion, because we need to look deeper as to what it is that they are trying to keep us away from, and we must rather pay attention to that, not for what they are trying to push down. Happens all the time. Now, allowing alleged perpetrators of the state off the hook, as Andili is trying to suggest, and standing aside is nothing short of absurd as far as I'm concerned. The fact is, the South African government, through its president, Jacob Zuma, I think is being held hostage by the Gupta family. They have put pressure on him, and he has got no room to move. He is doing what they tell him to do. That's the way that I can describe it. That's the way that I perceive it. And I think others feel the same, because he's not on his own. He has to have the assistance of other people. And although we might laugh at the Guptas, they're not so foolish. They've got this all together, and they're laughing all the way to, I don't know which bank, but anyway, they are laughing.
Yeah. Along the way, you're going to tell us about the bank story, as you say. Which bank, who knows? But Charm, I think they actually own Zuma and all these others underneath.
Yes.
I believe that his wallet is what leads the way for him. What makes his decisions for him is his back pocket. And these people have filled his back pocket. If you look at that mansion in Dubai that they bought for, well, allegedly for him. I mean, if somebody would buy me one of those, I wonder what I'd be prepared to do for it. You know, I consider myself an honest, upstanding person, but I've never been offered these billions. So I don't know how I would react if they did offer it to me. You know, I like to think I'd be honest and upstanding.
And corruption.
Yeah. Who they say everybody has a price. It's only negotiating that price. And we would like to think, I'm sure each of us would like to think that we're above that and we're better than that. But I don't know so much. If they're offering you mega billions, almost trillions, because if you look at the amount that's been stolen out of the South African economy, it's trillions. So if you could get part of that, I wonder how many of us would say no to it. I mean, realistically, you know, and I believe that that is the hold that they have on Zuma, because Zuma came from nothing, being a herd boy for his father. And now he has mansions everywhere. We don't know where he's got money offshore. We don't know anything about his fortune. Isn't that an enormous golden carrot being dangled in front of him?
I don't think he has the gumption to say no.
Yeah.
He is a person without integrity.
Yeah.
When recently there was a photograph that appeared in our newspaper, and I think it was doing the rounds on social media, where Prince Harry was shaking Jacob Zuma's hand. And I looked at this picture and I said, I wonder if he realizes he's actually shaking the hand of an honest person. I wonder what it feels like for him.
Yeah, because he doesn't in his normal daily life. Ever.
No.
We have a question for you.
Yes.
And I know you can answer this. Who are the Guptas really? And is there any evidence of them being connected to the globalist agenda? Are they an ancient bloodline family, or are they just business people who are corrupt?
I have done some investigation into the Guptas. I have had my contacts in India and also in Pakistan look into them. Now, the Guptas, they come from a town, just normal business people. There is no strong bloodline that I could find that is of any superiority. They are just small business people in India that perhaps stepped a little bit ahead of their status in life a bit too quickly. I also found that it was their father that was of a strong influence, and it was the father that encouraged them to go to South Africa. But I'm going to cover this for you in a minute.
Okay. Okay. I'll let you go on your timeline.
Okay. Now, there are those who believe there has been the systematic capture of state by the neoliberal politics and market forces. We know that. But allowing alleged perpetrators of state capture off the hook by standing aside is nothing short of absurd. The fact is that the South African government, through President Jacob Zuma, have actually allowed this to happen. But here are some examples that I want to give you, and I wrote those down. So let me read from this format. Support for media interests owned by the Gupta family by way of the Guptas are alleged to have instructed senior government officials to support the daily newspaper, The New Age.
Yeah.
The allegations have been denied. Both the New Age and TV broadcaster ANN7 have received significant government advertising spend, but they will, of course, deny this. Currently, the New Age and TV broadcaster ANN7 has been sold.
Yeah, there's another.
Right. This is seen to be nothing short of money laundering.
Yeah.
It's a scheme for the Guptas to obtain the necessary credentials to obtain banking facilities and systems in place for a more sinister maneuver out of South Africa.
Mm.
I think they're making a run for it. Now, jobs. The ANC cabinet, a gentleman by the surname of Jonas,
Mm.
where I mention their last name, it's because I cannot pronounce their first name.
Yes,
I
yeah.
do apologize, I'm sorry. But nonetheless, he was invited, if you don't mind, to the Gupta's house. And he was driven to the Gupta's home by the president's son, Duduzane Zuma,
Yeah.
where he was met by A.J. Gupta. A.J. Gupta allegedly told Jonas they'd been keeping tabs on him and wanted him to be their man in the treasury.
Mm-hmm.
A.J. Gupta revealed that they'd already made 6 billion rand from dealing with the government and wanted to make at least 2 billion rand more. That's enormous money. When Jonas, here's a man that's got a very hard backbone. He refused. He refused flatly. And then they tried to sweeten the deal by offering him 600,000 rand on the table. You can walk out the front door with it tonight in a bag. He refused. He absolutely refused. Jonas declined the money, and months later, he became the whistleblower that launched the then Public Protector's investigation. Now, viewers must actually please take a little bit of time, find on Google the Public Protector's report. It's a very long report, but please make a cup of tea or a pot of coffee, sit in a little corner of the garden and read this report carefully, because everything you need to know is in there, and it gave me a fright, and I'm a strong person. But yeah, everything that we need is in there. And I'm sorry that lovely lady Tuli Madonsela is no longer in this job, because she was so darn good.
Isn't that why she's no longer in the job? They don't want anybody in there that's going to investigate or look at anything. You must just be there, be useless, join the gravy train, put your hand out, and shut up. Literally.
And she's not a yes man.
Yeah.
And then there was this as well. Now, this I found particularly interesting. There was another individual. This person came out after Jonas with an account of how the Guptas tried to offer them the job of Minister of Public Enterprises in charge of state-owned companies.
Yes.
Now, I think you know who this person is, but I'm not mentioning names because she's a friend of mine. According to the report, the person was told during a meeting, this was in October last year, at the Gupta's home again, that they would go from an ordinary parliamentarian to a cabinet minister within a week. Just like that, boom.
Yeah.
All they had to do, now, this is very interesting. All they had to do was make South African Airways drop their route between Johannesburg and Mumbai, making way for the Gupta-linked carrier Jet Airways. The parliamentarian declined and was most surprised to see President Jacob Zuma emerge from one of the rooms saying, "Oh, it's okay. Escort this person to the front door and shuffle them along on their way." Now, that is where I say that's where the buck stops. There's the line. You've now overstepped it, because one only has to say to themselves today, what has happened to South African Airways? Why is it that they must absorb so much of the taxpayers' money in continual bailouts? This is not acceptable. But now we know why. Because of Jet Airways. And I hope they're listening.
Yeah.
There's more to come.
Wow.
Influence in board appointments to state entities, keeping the lights on for the Guptas, so to speak.
Yeah.
Questions have been asked about a certain Mark Pamensky, serving on the board of the National Power Utility Eskom, and the Guptas owned Oak Bay Resources and Energy. Now, there is a lot of suspicious stuff going on there, and we need to actually sit down and dissect this very, very carefully, because it's a hornet's nest and it's going to explode.
Yeah.
It'll explode every minute.
Just that one connection is so huge, Shah, with the coal mines and the preferential treatment, and it's just, as I said to you in the very beginning, it is so convoluted that to stretch it out is almost an impossible task.
Well, this is worse than a soap opera.
Yes, you couldn't make this up. You
can't. I have sat down and I've told my friends that live in Britain, America and Australia, and they think I've gone a bit loopy, because they don't believe that this could actually be happening, because their first question is, well, what are people doing about it?
And the answer to that is nothing. Nothing.
Now, according to a report, the Guptas also have the power to fire ministers that are seen as stumbling blocks to their plans. And this covers a little bit that you mentioned earlier on, because a former finance minister by the name of Nini, he insisted on sticking to the rules, and that cost him his job, as did a certain person by the name of Hogan.
Yes.
A former minister of public enterprises who refused to follow outside influence in appointments of board members of state-owned South African Airways, Transnet, who is the National Rail, and Eskom. The state power utility, as we know, on an official visit to India, Hogan said she was shocked to find the Guptas were running the show. She was relieved of her duties a few months later. Nobody knows where she is or what she's doing, but there's a case there, and I will find out. Then
I believe you will, Shah. I believe you will. Because if anybody is unstoppable, it's you. You dig and dig and dig. And when everybody else thinks there's no further to go, you're on it some more. I'm astonished.
I don't listen to no. That doesn't exist. My family, they know that as well. I don't do no. When you say no, I say that means yes, and off I go. But anyway, we now come across a very interesting minister, and his name is Zwane.
Yes.
Now, he's a mining minister, very good friend of the Guptas. Now, there was a certain report, this public protector's report, that he tried to delay. And he made up various excuses and one thing and another. But unfortunately, it didn't work that way. And he was made to look a bit of a fool. But a lot of the situation that transpired, particularly when he took his meeting to Switzerland on behalf of the Guptas to smooth over this acquisition of a very troubled coal mine from multinational commodity trader known as Glencore, helping the Guptas become one of the main coal suppliers to the state utility Eskom. Zwane alleged allegedly helped facilitate the deal by accompanying delegates from a Gupta resource company called Tagita. Now, where have we heard that name before? Just this week.
Yeah.
Now, they apparently all hopped on a plane and they went to Zurich, and they had this enormous meeting. And I had a look at the flight itinerary, and boom, there were their names. And I was quite amazed as to who attended that meeting. And this meeting is mentioned in great detail in the Public Protector's report. And there have been subsequent investigations afterwards, but I am saying this matter, it needs more investigation. And people, including myself, we need to dig very deep. It's not going to be very pleasant, because I think we're opening a can of worms here.
Yeah.
Back to Eskom. Accused of extremely convenient and cozy ties with the Guptas, featured heavily in the Public Protector's report, with 916 mentions. It's quite something. And a certain person by the name of Lynn Brown, who became the minister in charge of South Africa's state-owned enterprises, is implicated in the report for allowing the appointment of a lame duck board that turned a blind eye to murky deals made at the energy monopoly, and to a large extent this continues today even as we are talking. But it was Eskom's chief executive, Mr. Brian Molefe, who came out looking the worst, and this continues today. But for all his efforts, his prize is a big fat golden handshake.
11 point something million when Eskom is bankrupt. And they are insisting that this is necessary, and they are doing it. So this corrupt son of a hubcap is being paid out 11 million to go away and keep quiet.
That's basically what it is, shut up money.
Yeah.
There are merely a few examples that I've mentioned here, but the Guptas have overstepped their boundaries and their status, and there are many other situations that they are involved in. And we only need to say, well, how many government departments are there? Let's have a look at how they operate. And I can tell you right now, as sure as eggs are eggs and apples are apples, they're all state captured. I'll put my head in a pot of boiling water. They are all state captured.
I absolutely agree with you, because every little pathway you go down, there they are. So I don't believe that there's one of them that hasn't been.
No, they're all the same. And unfortunately, South Africans are today preparing themselves for a very rough ride. And they're fighting to protect their democracy from state capture before the 2019 elections.
Yeah.
And this is quite hard for them to do.
Yeah.
To better understand the situation, and including state capture, I think I must just include a bit of history on the Guptas. And I'm going to cover that point that you mentioned about where do they come from. I'll get to that. Now, brothers AJ, Atul and Rajesh, also known as Tony Gupta, they must be late 40s to mid-50 age group. They relocated to South Africa from India's northern state of Uttar Pradesh in Saharanpur in 1993 at the invitation of the late Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
Their father, Shiv Kumar Gupta, sent Atul to South Africa believing that Africa was to become the America of the world. The world's land of opportunity, but with emphasis on opportunity.
Yep.
Let's not forget that.
But did we not all believe that in 1994, Shah? Black, white, yellow, pink, green, from Mars didn't make any difference. We all took this weight off our shoulders, believed that this was an enormous new beginning and it was going to be equality for everybody, opportunity for everybody. We all believed that.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. But it was very short-lived, wasn't it?
Unbelievably short-lived.
When they started with this affirmative action and this black economic empowerment story, that's when I said, that's it, it's time to go. Because if you are like us with qualifications, there's no way that you're going to get a job in that country. I've got friends there who have to work for themselves because no company will employ them. And they struggle because now they've got these companies and they have to conform to this new legislation where they have to now have a director that is a black South African. And they are just a small one-man or one-woman operation. Yeah. How are they supposed to survive? It's very difficult.
I don't think they are supposed to survive, Shah. That is the whole point of all of this, is that they do not survive.
It's a very sad state of affairs that's going on there, because when you look at human rights, every human being...
I think it's on what thing?
When you look at human rights...
in South Africa, no.
They all have a right for employment. That human right is taken away from them. Shouldn't be that way. It should not be that way. Anyhow.
Sorry, I keep digressing, but I have to have my say.
It is also said when Atal arrived in what was then Africa's largest and most sophisticated economy. We must remember that when the ANC won the 1994 election, they inherited a sophisticated economy that was extremely viable and was doing extremely well. Well, in 23 years, the ANC government have reverted that into junk status. What have you got today? What have you got there today that's actually surviving? In terms
I can't think of anything. The electricity is up to, the water is ridiculous. The sewage system flows straight into the sea. The Minister of Water Affairs pumps salt water into the house taps and says it's perfectly safe. There is nothing.
What about education?
Oh, please.
That's gone down the Zambezi.
30% pass. 30%. And you want a lawyer, a surgeon, somebody with 30% knowledge working on your...
But they're quite happy to bring in Cubans to come and work in those positions.
Oh, yes. Yes, but while the whites live in squatter camps.
Yeah.
We won't employ them for anything.
Shocking.
It's terrible.
Now, the Guptas, when they arrived in Africa, South Africa, they set up this family business called Sahara Computers. And Atal was completely amazed at the lack of red tape compared to that in India. They were small, insignificant businessmen back in India, but their parent company, Sahara Group, now listen to this. This has no links to the Indian giant of the same name, and yet a lot of people get confused and think that. That's why they invented that name. Now suddenly has an annual turnover of around 200 million South African rand, which equates to approximately 22 million United States dollar, or approximately 14.5 million British pound sterling. And get this. I wonder if the tax man is aware that in Sahara Computers, did you know they employ 10,000 people? That's what they say. They employ 10,000 people. Now, I'm sitting here scratching my hair like this, thinking, 10,000 people? Can't be. Maybe Sahara group in India, that huge big company, you know, the cricket players from India have got Sahara computers on their cricket gear. It's not that company, but that's what they'd like you to think. And the Sahara group in South Africa, I don't even think they've got 100 people. I'd like to actually see it. I want to see the hard proof. I don't want to see nonsense. I want to see the proof. Maybe I go there and count the heads myself, because that's the only way I'm going to do it. As well as the computers, they have interests in mining, which we know of, air travel, which a lot of people don't realize, energy, technology, media, and more recently, state capture.
It's become big business.
Which is a very big business for them. Now, Atul says he and his brothers met President Zuma more than 10 years ago, which would make that 2006. 2006, 2007, thereabouts. And as I mentioned earlier, it was former President, the late Nelson Mandela, that introduced Atul and his brothers to the ruling African National Congress cabinet. That was done in around 1996. And there's plenty of proof. There's lots of photographs of meetings that they had. There's Nelson Mandela and there's Cyril Ramaphosa. So Cyril Ramaphosa cannot deny and say he never met the Guptas, because he very well did. And there's a few others that did as well. They look a lot younger there, but there's photos. In fact, I've got a few. I will publish them on my timeline. Anyway, that was the introduction to the ANC cabinet in 1996. They were able to form very close links, particularly their target. And their target was President Zuma. Now, I have a little phrase. My mother banged it into my head. Always choose your friends wisely. A person is often judged by the company they keep. So let's have a look at the company that they keep. This is something very interesting here. Jacob Zuma's son, Duduzane. He was, or still is, a director of the Gupta's Sahara Computers. He has been a director of several other Gupta companies. Duduzane came to prominence between 2007 and 2009. I might be wrong. It could even be 2008. When his father became the president of the ANC political party and went on later to become the president of South Africa, because he suddenly became the director of a major South African business at the age of 25. No questions asked. Boy, oh boy, it's not only a case of having friends in high places, it's who you know in terms of your father being in a high place.
Yep.
In 2014, in the Randburg Magistrate...
Is that reverse nepotism? We'll haul in the son to promote the father. I mean, that's not exactly nepotism. I don't know what the word is for that, but it is reverse nepotism, isn't it?
Well, of course it is. But we have here a can of worms, which
huge.
It's massive. We will never get to the bottom of this, not in my lifetime or your lifetime together, but a 25-year-old that gets this fabulous job, that in 2014, this is where it all went haywire for him, because the Randburg Magistrates Court found that his negligence led to the death of a 30-year-old Phumzile Dube and later Jeanette Mashaba. I believe these were two girls from Zimbabwe. When this 25-year-old young man driving his Porsche collided with a taxi carrying passengers.
Yes.
Despite arguments for criminal prosecution on the basis of Duduzane Zuma failing to act in a reasonable manner, which would have avoided collision, the National Prosecuting Authority declined to prosecute. Hussain made even further controversy because he went to work for the Guptas. And this has been a focal point of controversy ever since 2014, and so has this court case. Now, there's another spanner in the works here as well, and that is the Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa, also known as PRASA.
Yeah.
With the tender meant to be given to the Chinese. And it's a well-known fact that PRASA has now taken legal action to recover the alleged stolen money.
From the Italians, because the trains didn't fit. Now, the Italians told the South African government that this is not going to work. Nevertheless, they
were too high and too wide, weren't they? The carriages were too wide for the tracks. Not a problem, they said. They'll just change the tracks.
Exactly. So, which didn't happen, which led to terrible train accidents, etc. And now what? Now what?
Now what? Well, the whole thing is an absolute mess. It is. It's a complete shambles. I'm surprised that they're still in power. But anyway, you didn't hear me say that. Jacob Zuma's third wife, Bongi. I'll try and pronounce her last name. The middle name, Njema Zuma. And one of his daughters was employed by the Guptas also.
Mm.
And then there was Deputy Finance Minister Jonas, that he claimed in March that the Guptas had offered him the post of finance minister.
Yes.
Providing the first public testimony of their alleged involvement in cabinet appointments. I don't think they realized what they had said, but they had basically committed themselves. Yeah. Or maybe they just threw that fish in to give us a little feed. But anyway, that did work because I've got it here. Now, Deputy Finance Minister, he is the gentleman that refused to accept all that money. So fair play to him on that. And then this man, in 2015, a little-known ANC lawmaker by the name of David Van Rooyen visited the Gupta's house the night before his appointment as finance minister.
Mm.
However, he did not last long since being appointed. He lasted 4 days.
Didn't we have 3 or 4 finance ministers in those 4 days?
They were turning them over like popcorn.
Yes.
And certainly raised a few eyebrows.
Allowed the stock market, and South African businesses lost mega billions in because of that little turnover.
Perfectly orchestrated. Their timing was well done. And they took advantage of that situation. And that is why I always say that they employ these people that have got qualifications and then they dismiss them. Des Van Rooyen had the qualifications to be a finance minister, but clearly they did not want him in that role after 4 days. And then, unfortunately, he was replaced by the former minister and a very respected minister, Pravin Gordhan.
Yes.
He was treated terribly by Zuma.
Mm.
I don't think Zuma wanted him in the job. He was used as a scapegoat, I think. And let's go back to our Minister of Mineral Resources, Mr. Zwane.
Ah.
Yeah, he is a very close pal of the Guptas. And that's why I always say jobs for pal syndrome.
Yeah.
Both the Guptas and Jacob Zuma have often described the brothers as being very good friends of his, but that they do no wrongdoing. And I believe this was uttered last night by his son. I think they all get told what to say.
Yep.
Now,
absolutely.
Yeah. Now we go back to the Guptas. I love this. This makes me laugh. The Guptas at their residence and their business headquarters in a high-security compound in Saxonwold. It's a very upmarket district in Johannesburg. Interesting alternative name it has, and it does make me laugh. It's also known as a Saxonwold shebeen. Now, for those individuals that don't
know what a shebeen is.
They don't know what a shebeen is. So here's a description. It's a pub. It's a bar. It could be illegally operated. It could be legally operated. The point is they serve liquor. They serve alcohol. That is a shebeen. Whether they serve liquor at their Muslim at their residence, I don't know. But I was told that they're not allowed to drink alcohol. At least that's how it is here.
Yeah.
Anyway, the property boasts a helicopter pad, and they reportedly travel with their own chefs and bodyguards, demanding the best top services wherever they travel, and money seems to be no object. Well, of course it's no object. It's not their money to spend, but they're spending it.
Except when it comes to paying for weddings. Then suddenly they don't have the money.
Don't you worry, I'm getting to that now. They also own the former Cape Town home of Sir Mark Thatcher. He is the son of former UK Prime Minister, the late Margaret Thatcher. Now, would be very interesting to find out how they pay for the lavish properties, and if there exists a bond, also known as a mortgage, on the properties, or if they're paid in cash. Because we know the Guptas do not like to leave a money trail. They pay everything is in cash. But as the pressure increased on them, certainly by 2013, they were reported to be moving their base to Dubai and to have bought a very large residence in the city. They said, moving forward in August 2016, that they plan to sell the South African assets.
Yes.
And at this time that the authorities should have intervened and confiscated all of their assets and frozen their bank accounts. Why didn't they? Because they're protected by a higher authority.
Yep.
The police are state captured, the NPA are state captured, the Hawks are state captured, the whole ANC is state captured. Beginning to think the Guptas are in charge. Anyhow, there has been much frustration and a vast amount of public anger towards this family. And it's got even worse since 2013, when a jet carrying 200 foreign guests to a Gupta wedding landed at Waterkloof Air Force Base just outside Pretoria. The airport is a military facility used to receive heads of state. The wedding was held at the well-known resort hotel of Sun City and was found later in 2017 to have been paid by the humble South African taxpayer, who, by the way, was not even invited to this eat, drink and be merry affair. The 200 guests were ferried in a convoy of chauffeur-driven luxury vehicles. They were given a police escort to the Sun City Holiday Resort in Rustenburg in the Northwest Province. Now, questions have often been raised as to what gave the Gupta family the confidence to even think of requesting to land their chartered Airbus A330 at a military base in South Africa.
Yeah.
Some suggest it was because one of President Zuma's wives, Bongi, worked for the Guptas and that she received a 3.8 million rand Pretoria mansion for favors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guptas deny paying this, but of course they would deny it because they have this principle, deny, deny, deny. Yeah. Their day's coming where they won't be given a chance to deny.
Well, I certainly hope so.
Well, I do, and I hope it happens in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Now, we go back to Zuma's son, Duduzane. He was, as you know, a director of some of the Gupta's family companies until he stepped down. And he mentioned when he made this press statement that he had sustained a huge amount of political attack. And maybe he provided some strong influence for the plane to land at the Air Force Base. And then, of course, there is Duduzile Zuma,
the daughter.
She was appointed as a director of Sahara Computers merely 6 months after her father was elected as ANC president, but she has also since left. And then a certain Sunday media publication, whose name I won't divulge, reported that the Guptas once demanded to be given diplomatic passports and argued that they regularly travelled with President Zuma on business trips promoting South Africa, but the request was rejected. The Department of International Relations and Cooperation did not deny the story, while a Gupta spokesperson said the reports were a determined drive to malign the family.
Of course.
Again, of course they don't deny.
Yeah.
It's not clear how much money, if any, the Guptas have donated to the governing party, because political parties are not obliged to disclose donations, especially from private sources. Now, how convenient is that for them?
Very
convenient.
Also,
the Guptas have courted Zuma. Yeah.
If they're donating personally and not to the ANC, well, they leave no paper trail ever.
It would always be cash in brown paper envelope under the table.
Yeah.
I think that also needs looking into, because it would be very interesting to find out if any of those envelopes have crossed a hand or two or three.
Yeah.
There was also the ex-president Thabo Mbeki that the Guptas tried to get close to, but he played all his cards close to his chest. He wasn't having any of it. However, he has crossed over and he's very, very friendly with Mugabe and a couple of others. Obviously, he has a hidden agenda on that side, but he must have known something, because why didn't he allow them to get close? That's what I'd like to know.
And why did he get unseated long before his term ended? I mean, that kind of felt to me as though it came out of the blue. It couldn't have. But
it was uncomfortable, because the suspicion was uncomfortable, because lots of questions have been asked. And if anybody has the answers out there, send them to me. I'd like to know. I'm very interested.
Yeah.
He's an elderly gentleman at the moment, and I think there is more to this than what meets the eye.
Huge amounts more, but we were all still operating with the wool pulled over our eyes at that time. That it was the Rainbow Nation, and unavailable to believe that such skullduggery could be taking place. I
wonder what part he has played in all of that, and also today.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, the family does have very strong connections with Jacob Zuma, and they are extremely close allies. And we have another fella, and he is the Deputy Defense Military Veteran by this name. I had to ask my husband, he's a South African. I had to ask him, how do I pronounce this name? And he said, it's very easy, Mafatsa. So there you go. I'm apologizing for was quoted by South Africa's press as saying that the Guptas owned less than 1% of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange and should be left alone. Do you get it? That he must be left alone. And in addition, indications are that there are deep divisions within the government over the family's role. And it is one of the reasons behind increasing calls for Zuma to step down. What is very clear here is that the Guptas desire to extend their influence to the ministry that controls the money, and in particular government departments that receives and holds under its control cash money. So think of a funnel. You go along, well, if you live in South Africa and you are on a meter unit for your electricity. So you go along and you spend your 2,000 Rand a week or a month for your electricity, and you feed your meter with that coupon. That's paid with credit card, debit card, or cash money. I don't know if checks still work in South Africa. They don't really work here. So you're feeding in cash money. They've got a funnel, and they just, thank you, thank you. So because of all this money sitting there at the bottom, they're just taking off the top. They're milking it. They are milking it, which reminds me of a particular dairy farm. Trust me, I'm getting there.
Oh, yeah, good. I'm glad you're going there as well. I'm trying really hard not to jump in, because everything I want to talk about, you do get to.
Well, I've tried to cover everything as possible. I even asked a very good friend of mine today, bless him, to give me some help in case there was something I missed out. And he gave me another long list. So I thought to myself, oh, well, maybe Karen would like to invite me back at a later stage. Who knows? But yes, there is a lot going on.
No, sure.
I don't think we can keep our finger on the pulse. It's hard to keep up.
It is. It's awful.
There are so many issues. It's well, I feel very sorry. Excuse me. Yeah. Now, going back to these people that I love to refer to them as major banks. We've heard it said in South Africa that major banks have pulled the shutters down on the Guptas.
Yeah.
I'm saying to myself, it's not going to work that way. If you've got a wife that uses her maiden name, and women are allowed to use their maiden name, I use my maiden name, I don't use my married name, because my maiden name is the name in my passport. That's why. So, very simple. The wife will go to the bank and open up a new bank account, or maybe go and register a closed corporation business in South Africa, or a PTI limited business. Everything is above board, or seems to be, and in goes the money. They just need that bank account as an identity, and it's very easy to achieve. It's quite hard to keep up with criminals, because, well, I'm not saying that today I'm talking about criminals, but I'm being generalistic when I say it's very hard to keep up with criminals, because in order to do that, you must know their mindset. You must know what to expect. And I think we have reached the point where we know what to expect, but we're still so shocked to realize that it's happened.
Yeah. Yes.
Because maybe we don't expect people to be so brazen and to operate under the radar like this. But they do. And the end result is we're still shocked. It's scary. But anyway, the Guptas have had their bank accounts closed. I'm not too sure it's closed the doors to the Guptas, but I'm looking into that. The family did lobby unsuccessfully for the former finance minister Pravin Gordhan, who was at the time at loggerheads with Zuma. They did ask him to get them out of the pickle, but he didn't, and we know why, because this is coming up. There was a question of a very suspicious transaction to the tune of 480 million United States dollars. And this whole matter went to court. As to the outcome, I don't think there was a very successful outcome at this stage, but I will look further into it. The family denied reports that money had been removed from the rehabilitation fund of a mine they had bought. They said the claim was another example of groundless innuendo. Now, they were taken to court over this. There was a drama. I'm not quite sure who the winner of the judgment was, but nonetheless, I will go back and look into that. But it was close to this time that Jacob Zuma blocked the release of a watchdog report into his relationships with the Guptas. It doesn't matter as to whether Jacob Zuma says he's not close friends with the Guptas. I think the public know better because the evidence is too strong.
Yes.
The evidence is too strong and it's way above him. So it doesn't matter how many times he denies. We know better because it's there. The Gupta family is accused of wielding enormous political influence in South Africa, with critics alleging that it was trying to capture the state to advance its business interests. And this we have seen in action with companies like Oak Bay, Eskom, Transnet, South African Airways, just to name a few. And based on the various media reports, and of course more recently those Gupta leaks, hell, I do enjoy reading those.
Yep.
The controversial Gupta family, this tickles me, because this is so brazen. They were involved in this 570 million rand dairy project in Vrede in the Free State.
Yeah.
Now, I ask you with tears in my eyes, reports of their involvement in the project first surfaced in 2013, but the Free State government denied it, despite the fact that the Guptas had attended talks about the project and had said the Free State government had shown great interest, and don't worry, they know about this and it's all accepted, blah, de, blah, de, blah. And furthermore, it is disputed as to where the money came from to finance the purchase of this dairy farm that, would you believe, has no cows. Now, a dairy farm, isn't it supposed to have cows to produce milk?
One would think.
One thinks. Now, there you have the whole shelf of this farm. You've got sheds, you've got something that looks like machinery. You've got tractors and bulldozers and dirt roads and no cows. No milk has been produced. And yet they expect to produce milk, at least that's what they tell everybody.
Yeah.
And they will supply the local community and they will provide the local community with jobs. Well, filling the gullible people with false promises is not a very nice thing to be doing, because some of these people have remortgaged or rebonded their homes, they've borrowed money, they've sold their personal effects because they believe they're going to work on this dairy farm.
Yeah.
Well, this dairy farm is practically non-existent. There is just an exterior infrastructure. There's nothing else. Now, they plan to supply the local community, government departments, including prisons and large retail outlets. Now, in 2016, it was reported that the project had already cost 570 million rand, and it was also reported that the National Treasury had said the Free State Department of Agriculture was still financing the dairy project to the tune of 46 million rand for the 2016 to 2017 financial year. So again, another bogus company burning up the taxpayers' money. Emphasis on burning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then a little bit closer, April 2016, the Gupta brothers and President Jacob Zuma's son, Duduzane, announced that they were finally going to leave Oak Bay Investments and Oak Bay Resources and Energy. There was a big mishmash and there was a press meeting and one thing led to another. Then their the family had come under increasing pressure due to certain allegations that had been made in that they had influenced President Jacob Zuma's appointment of the mines minister, Mosebenzi Zwane, and former finance minister Des Van Rooyen, who I mentioned earlier, as well as offering ministerial posts to Deputy Finance Minister Jonas and other ANC parliamentarians, and some officials were thrown into the mix. AJ and Atul Gupta, they were the co-chairs of Oak Bay Investments, while Atul was the chair of Oak Bay Resources and Energy. Meantime, Varun Gupta, he was the CEO of Oak Bay Resources and Energy, while Duduzane Zuma was the director of Shiva Uranium. We're going to hear a lot of talk about this company. I have a very nasty little itch that's telling me that. And uranium is an interesting topic in South Africa because to power nuclear energy, there are two products required. One is uranium, the other being coal. The Guptas are involved with both. Now, the pressure is on. It was becoming increasingly hot in the kitchen. And consequently, the Guptas relocated themselves to Dubai. I have a little joke where I say, that's where they have the training school for corruption. You've probably seen some of my posts where I've mentioned
I have
you've got to have a sense of humor, otherwise you'll be dead. Now, they've taken with them vast sums of money. The major South African operation was hampered by the banks closing. I don't think that they thought that that would happen as soon as it did. Should have happened sooner, but it did happen. Their firm's banking accounts, I don't know if they were served a notice in time to withdraw all their funds, or what the procedure is down there in South Africa to be able to do that. But I know that when a bank closes your bank account, doesn't matter if there's money in there, it's confiscated. And that's it. That's it. Bye-bye money. Now, they must have, the banks, in order to do that, they must have said that there are certain transactions that are questionable. And perhaps the Guptas didn't have the correct answers, or didn't provide the answers, or couldn't tap dance around the issue fast enough. We don't know, but we need to find these things out. There were witnesses at the Lanseria airport from which their private aircraft departed with a mountain of designer luggage. And apparently people asked questions, is this aeroplane actually going to take off? People made jokes about it. Quite something. These guys, not a day goes by where there isn't some drama. But anyway, it was now around 2016 that I heard on a British news broadcast that the infamous Guptas had arrived in Britain, much to my excitement. And they were looking to improve their image. Fancy that. By using a British PR firm. Alarm bells began ringing. And because I know their history, and I also am aware of their reputation, with an image that is so fraught with flaws and so tainted, they would need rebranding. However, I gave this a lot of thought, and this is when I began my investigation. Bell Pottinger, ring any bell? A public relations company, quite a colourful company. But when you have a look at their website, this is what it says about them. A public relations company in Britain with offices at strategic worldwide locations, including Dubai. According to their homepage of their website, it says, Bell Pottinger is a leading integrated international reputation management agency. They claim they will help shape their clients' reputations, engage with diverse stakeholders across multiple channels, tell effective stories and run creative campaigns
very
and deliver commercial success. Well, I tell you something. I have seen a lot of stories on Twitter that go to the white minority capital and one thing and another. And I've had a jolly good laugh at their interpretations, and they, nonetheless,
they delivered.
Sorry?
They delivered what they promised for the Guptas.
They certainly did.
They delivered. Give them their due. They advertised it. The Guptas paid for it. They delivered the goods.
In more ways than one.
Yeah, in more ways than one.
In more ways than one.
Yeah.
Now, they are also known for representing some notorious political clients, although they prefer to portray themselves as dexterous media manipulators.
Mm-hmm.
An example of one of their notorious clients is Pinochet. I'm sure you and I would know who he is, but individuals much younger than ourselves, they wouldn't have a clue. But anyway, just briefly, he was a dictator from Chile. He was a general. He was a politician, a very tight military ruler. He ruled from around 1973 to about 1990. He remained the commander-in-chief of the Chilean army until 1998. He was also president of the government junta of Chile between 1973 and 1991. As I said, a dictator, but with it, he was an extremely evil man. There were various assassination attempts. He survived those. He eventually did pass away, but I'm not sure whether it was by the hand of an outside individual or whether it was natural. I haven't looked that far. But nonetheless, Bell Pottinger are no strangers to working in African politics. They seem to like it. They have been involved and have provided electoral campaign support here, Kenya, over the last 40 years, a strong interest in research and investigating into this ongoing saga.
We're coming up to the 15-minute mark. And don't worry, Shah, if we do not get through it today, we will have you back because this is a very, very important subject. We lost you for a moment there. We're coming up to the 10 minutes left mark.
Yeah.
Don't worry. If we don't get through it, you will be back because there will be more. This is a non-stop.
Plenty more. There's plenty more. But Bell Pottinger have been intensely involved, and we know about the underhand tactics and the extent of their involvement. So I'll move fast forward. We know that President Zuma has reportedly asked members of Bell Pottinger team to create a media environment that would be advantageous to his successor, his ex-wife, Dlamini Zuma. The additional support for the president has been commanded by the Gupta family themselves. But I think if I can move swiftly forward and go straight to, I think where the Democratic Alliance have got involved.
Yes.
This, I think, is something of value because I'm of the opinion that the Democratic Alliance, I'll refer to them as the DA, the opposition political group has shown they have a backbone and they've not abandoned South Africans, and they picked up this matter and they ran with it to what we have today. And I'm very grateful that they did do that because at least they are doing something.
Yeah.
I don't know if other parties have actually ventured this far. Maybe they're too small. We don't know. But anyway, credit due where it's due. And I think in the next couple of days, we are into hearing a very interesting outcome about the Bell Pottinger fiasco. Now, I'm going to go straight to my ending here. To arrive at where I began, where South Africa is not a country at peace with itself. In fact, it is an extremely dangerous place, especially under Jacob Zuma of the ANC, and especially with the influence of the Gupta brothers, their hidden agenda, compound, sure they are yours and others. It is that democracy might become a distant memory if we do not act now. And I believe that teamwork is of the essence. It's required more than ever from all South Africans. In conclusion, there are many changes that are needed now, today, and tomorrow more than ever. Abraham Lincoln has a very good quote, and I'd like to quote it, and it goes like this: "The dogma of the quiet past are inadequate for the stormy present and future. As our circumstances are new, we must think anew and act anew. And so must we. We need to look at the old issue and bring it into a new way, not simply for today, but for the tomorrows, to make the situation more rewarding and more fulfilling for everybody. This must be more compelling, because those changes that we make today, with your help, my help, their help, we can think anew and act anew on the issues that are before us. We can overcome this. Trust me, we can. And if we do this together, the emphasis is on together.
Yeah.
We've heard what we have to do. We've seen what needs to be done. We know what all it's going to take. Now is the time to do it, and we need to do it. I know that there are many talented people in South Africa. They are extremely capable people. Mm-hmm. They are all driven. They are all motivated. It's in their blood. They are hard-working people. We know it. We've lived there. I know that none of us can do this alone, but here we are. We can together rescue South Africa and take it back to its democracy, because that we don't want to lose. That we must never, ever lose, because it is so important for everybody. And the manner in which the African National Congress have applied this disequal rights, it doesn't exist. They have basically done a middle finger to the Constitution and the rule of law when they moved al-Bashir out the country in the dead of night.
Yes.
And look what's happened about that. So unfortunately, South Africa has come now to a crossroad where it's now up to individuals, because the current government in power are doing nothing to help you. They've failed, a big fail.
Yeah,
and whoever takes that place, we need to support them, because if it is the DA, they are the largest majority. We should all get behind them. They might not be everybody's cup of tea, but we should just support them, because we don't want the ANC in power
anymore. Our men to
no
that.
More.
Our men to that.
Yeah. I think if we all put our heads together, we can come up with a very good plan. And there are very intelligent people that I have come across with this project. And I just stand back and let them get on with it, because they are brilliant people. And they want this democracy. They want South Africa to be functioning as it should again, normally. And let them get on with it.
Absolutely, sure.
What we don't need is all this backbiting and backstabbing.
Thank you.
There's enough. You can have it back.
That is our mantra on this show.
It is horrendous.
Our mantra every show. Join hands, people. and make this work, because with all the backstabbing, it's never going to work.
No, it won't work.
Thank you.
You can't have this "I'm better than thou" attitude. No. You're working at the same level. We've all got the same interest to heart. Come on, everybody, let's get this happening. Let's get it working.
Yeah.
You got something to contribute. The man over there has something to contribute. Let's go.
Absolutely.
But let's get rid of the ANC. We don't want them in power.
No, we do not. Shah, thank you very, very much for all the research you've done on this and for your illuminating talk. I'm sorry that we just didn't have long enough, but everybody, the subject is so huge.
It's massive.
It's huge. You could never cover it in 2 hours. But thank you very, very, very much.
You're welcome.
I couldn't. I dug and I looked and I read and I couldn't wrap my head around it. We will have you back on because there will be more discovered in the near future. So thank you so very, very much, Shah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Honestly inspiring to sit here and hear some intelligence and well done research. So very appreciative of what you're doing, and we look forward to having you back.
It'll be my pleasure.
Brilliant.
Thanks a lot.
Before you go, I just wanted to ask, Shah, do you have a website where people can access your information?
No, not yet. I have thought about a website. I haven't put it together. I'm very website savvy. I do believe that it is important. There's a lot of other projects that I'm involved with. I work mostly from my Facebook page and also various other pages that I have.
Okay, brilliant. All right, and Karen, as always, where can people find you?
RadioFreeSouthAfrica.com, and please tune in to our show tonight. We have an astonishing, wonderful show on ResolutionRadio.com tonight. Please tune in at 7 p.m. Central Time.
Lovely. Thank you very much to you both. It's been an honor and a privilege to sit here and listen to this information, and we look forward to doing this again. Thank you to everybody across the world who has tuned in. This will be archived in the usual place, ccn.media. And for all those wanting to catch up on the latest that's going on in South Africa, please check out my website, stopsouthafricangenocide.org. And that's it from us tonight, folks. As always, it has been an honor and a privilege to serve you with this information. My name is Melvi, and we will see you again.
If we want to change the world, we must first change the media. Mainstream media exists for the purposes of indoctrination and manipulation of public perception. The world of free and independent media is growing, and with the upsurge in information now available in the public domain, it has never been easier to access free and independent media. The exploration of this information resulted in an experimental project which would provide a fully supported space for researchers, whistleblowers, and seekers of all kinds to express themselves and educate the world. On the 1st of January 2015, Conscious Consumer Network was launched to the world. Nobody thought we would make it this far, but CCN is the longest running free and independent media network of its kind. CCN is a unique collaboration of hearts and souls, bringing you information from different perspectives to educate and inform. Since we started CCN, we have had only one desire: the pursuit of a free, fair, just, sustainable world, and this has not changed. Having overcome many challenges over the last 2 years, CCN is here to stay, and we've got great things lined up for 2017. Help keep CCN on the air by supporting the 2017 Network Support Fund.